Well, let's get started with the first ever Solana project. So first thing, you have to create a folder, and this time we're going to call it Solana token. Open this particular folder in your VS Code. So come back here, click on the VS and click on the open, go to the desktop, and from here we have to select the folder, select this one and open that one. That looks fine. Close this one. And now the very first thing we have to do is we have to download the starter file. So I have already provided. So come back here to the blockchain coder, and here you will find all the project which we have built on the channel. So come back here, click on the course. So this is the course which I have launched. This will teach you every single thing which you have to know about the blockchain development and all the tools and technology which you have to know. So I would recommend you come and check this one. So come back here, let's go to the source code section, and here you will find all the source code which the project we have built. You can simply search for Solana and you will have this one. So click on this, it will take you here, and from here you can get the final code and the starter file. So click on the starter file and it will take you to the GitHub, and you can simply check all the resources which is provided to all of you guys. Now get this particular URL and come back to your VS Code and make on the full screen. Now open up your terminal. Let's bring it little here. Open up your terminal, drag it up, and we have to simply clone the repository. So simply type clear to clear the terminal. So before we start coding in the project, first you have to check that whether you have node or npm installed. So to check, you have to type node-v. I'm using this particular version. You can use the same version, and I'm using this particular one. So if you have any problem related to any one of the packages with the updated node version, then make sure to keep your node version with this and it will work fine, because all the packages which we're going to utilize is very much compatible with this particular node. There is no problem in that. Simply clear your terminal and install. We'll say git clone, and we'll give this string and give this dot. So this one is going to clone the repository in the same directory. Hit enter, and this is going to take few seconds, and finally we have clone all the repository. So simply close this down, and let me take you the quick overview of the folder and file structure which we have designed for this application. So first I'm going to delete this one, remove this one, and here we have this src folder. In that we have all the component. So this time I'm following a different architecture as compared to the structure we have followed in the previous project. So here we have the src, inside that we have the component. In this SVG file you will have all the three icon we are using. So that's the icon I have provided, and here we have all the components. So these are the global component like app bar, branding, footer, notification. So all of this global component. Close this one. This is the context. In that we're going to build the provider, the context and network configuration. So this is the auto configuration, all of that we have. This is the hook, this is the model, and here we have the page. So it's going to be a single page application. We are not doing anything with the API, so just keep it as it is. Here we have the configuration for the app.txt, and we have this document. That's what we're going to configure. Here we have the index page. These are the three things we have. Now come back to the story, and here we have to manage the store, because we are building our own internal store for storing the information about the balance of the user and the network setup. So that's what we're going to do it. Here we have the style. So I have already imported couple of libraries, and I'm using Tailwind CSS in the project, and I have also written some of my custom classes. That's all you will find. So you don't need to do any changes. In later, once you complete this project, and if you want to do the modification, you can simply do that. This is the style. Let's come back to the utils. In this, we're going to do the explore and notification component setup. So that's the logic we're going to build here. And here we have the actual component called view, and that's going to be added into our home page. So this is the airdrop, this is the contact, this is the create, donate, FAQ, feature, and here I have provided this array of data which we're going to use it to render in our front end. That's already given to all of you guys. Close that one. Now here we have the feature. This is the home, input, offer, token metadata, tools, and here we have this. So we're going to import all of this component right up here, and we're going to export it from here to use it in our home page. Now simply close all of these, open folder. Looks good. Now we can come back here in the next.env. So don't need to do anything in here. This is the configuration which is the same, and here we have the packages and files. So this is very important. No matter when you are building this project, So this is the command we have set up. And no matter when you are building this project, these are the exact packages you have to install, because these packages are very much comfortable with the node version and the application. So as long as you will use the exact version, that's going to work absolutely fine, because all the setup, all with the configuration we're going to do as per this particular package. So these are the things you have to keep in mind. So this is the Tailwind and CSS we are using, post, autofixer, and we have the node and React. Now come back here. Now we have to simply install the package. So these are the things, and here we have provided a couple of important information so you can have a look. And here I am simply configure my Tailwind configuration. So I have given the directory that where I want to use the Tailwind CSS. So this time I'm using SRC instead of going with app and page and component. And this is pretty much simple. This is just a compiler setting. Just keep it as it is. Now we have to install the packages. So open up your terminal and let me bring it up and clear the terminal and type npm I or install. Both will work fine. So just wait, the installation will complete very soon. And finally we have installed the packages, no issue we have. You can simply ignore this vulnerability. We have this node modules, and that you will have all the libraries we have installed. So this is the forms pair. In the same way you will find all the Solana packages, the wallet providers, everything you will find here. Now I'm going to start the application. So let's clear the terminal and type npm run dev, because this is the command we are running. So simply copy this localhost 3000 and let's open that in your browser. So come back here, open a new tab, paste here, hit enter, and you can see our application is successfully started. Right now we haven't done the configuration, that's why you can see this 3 folders are looking: document, app, and internal server. So these are the changes we're going to do and configure our application. So come back here in the code and you can see the error we have. Close this down, and now we're going to start working on the functionality first before we move to the front end and build all the connection. Let's work on the actual functionality where we allow the network configuration, context provider, notification error, network setup. That's all we're going to do it. After that we'll move to the front end. Hope things are clear to all of you guys. Now let's come back to the SRC and we have to get back to the pages. Inside the pages we have to work on the document. So come back here, and here we have to do the setup so our application can know. Right now you can see we have this document, but the moment we do the setup it will be displaying the actual data. So come back to the document and let's do the setup. So first thing, we're going to import a couple of things. So we're going to import next document, and that's coming from document, context, head, HTML, main, and next script. These are the imports we are getting from the next document. Now we can come back here. Let's build the function. We'll say my document extend document, and inside that we have to generate the static. So we'll say static, it's going to be an async get initial prop, and in that we can simply pass this ctx, but we're going to give a different name. Let's call this one document context. Again, I'm not going into details that how you have to write this like TypeScript code. If you guys want me to build a complete course on TypeScript, then let me know. So I'll make a complete separate course for the TypeScript where I will explain all of this. But these are the general setups you have to do in the TypeScript. So inside that we're going to take a variable called initial prop, and it will say await document.get initial prop. In that we have to simply pass the ctx. Once we have that, now we can simply return the initial prop. So that's the setup we have for the document, the class document. Now we can come back here, and here we have to simply return. We call this render function, and down below we can simply call the return. So what will happen that all the documents will come, it's going to render, and that's going to be the main structure of our application. So we have to define whatever we have imported from the document. So we'll say HTML, we have to close the HTML, then we have to take the head tag, close it, and inside that I'm going to take our fav icon. So we'll have this style sheet, we'll give this fav icon. So again, this icon is given to all of you guys in the public folder. So if you come back here and if you go to the public folder, you can see inside that we will have this assets. Inside the assets you will have all the assets which you provided, like CSS, images. Inside the images you will find that these are the icons and the different folders we have for the images which we're going to utilize it. That's all given in the startup file. So that's the simple setup we are building. Okay, it's nothing related to the project. This is the setup we have to do to execute our application. So that's the head tag we have. Now we can come back here. Let's give the body. We define the main and we'll define the script, next script. And that's the setup. That's the only setup we have to do and it will work fine. So if I save it and we can come back here, we have to simply export the default, export default my document because that's the name we have given. So it looks good and save it. Come back to the browser and reload the page and you will see that I'm getting this particular error that document is not defined. Okay, my bad. So simply come back here and here we have to simply define that document and that will fix the issue. Simply save it and that will fix the issue. Come back here, reload the page and here we have the app. Now we can start working on our app folder. So things are looking pretty good. So this is good. Now we're done with this. This is just the actual setup we have to do to tell our application that from where we get the data and how we're going to render it. Close that one. Come back to the app and here we have to do the setup for our context and all the global component. So remove that one. Let's import. First we're going to import the app prop and that's coming from the next app. Then we're going to import the head and that's coming from next head. Then we have to import the FC and that's coming from the React. Then we have to import, let's say we're going to get into the context and we have to import the context provider which we have to build. So we'll say context provider. Then we have to import the app bar. It's going to be our header and that's coming from the component. Then we have to import the footer and that's also coming from the same place, component / footer. Then we have to import the notification. So we'll say notification and that's coming from the same place, component notification. So we are getting all of this. Looks pretty fine, no issue we have so far. But right now we haven't built this particular one, context provider. So that's the one we're going to build it. So before we start working on the context, let's build the structure. So come back here, we'll take a variable call. Let's import the wallet UI styling and our global styling. So let's take that required. And first we have to get the Solana wallet adapter React UI. In that we have the CSS file. So we have to get that CSS file. So that's the CSS we have for the wallet provider. So when you will click on the current wallet function, it's going to open the pop-up model and that's the styling we are importing here. Once we have the styling, then we have to import our internal styling, which we have done the configuration in the global CSS file. That's what we're going to take it. So let's say global.css. So these are the configuration imports and export we have done. Sorry, only import we have done. And now we have to build the function. So we'll take a variable called const. It's going to be an FC. In that we have to simply pass the app props and we're going to simply build our function. We'll say component and this is going to be a page props. Simple architecture, we have followed this multiple times and now we have to simply render. So we have to simply return and we have to build the skeleton. We have to do the setup. So now I'm going to take a div and in that I'm going to attach all the global component with the context and our JavaScript file. So to do so, let's take a div. It will have a class and we call this bg default 900. Again, this class is from the Tailwind. We are not using our own class which we have created. It's a Tailwind classes. Inside this, we're going to take this head and we'll close that one. Inside that, we're going to define our title for the application. We'll say Solana token creator. That's the head. Now we can simply come and take our context. Let's take this. Let's take the context provider and close that one. Inside that, we're going to take our notification. We'll take our app bar and we'll take our component page props. The reason why I have taken this inside the context because we are calling some of the context function there. That's why we need to take inside the context and close this one. And here we can take the footer as well. Although we are not using footer, any data or any function for the context, but it's better to keep it there. So in case in future, if we want to export any function and we want to receive any data in our footer, then we can do that. So that's the setup for our context, notification, app and footer. And that's all we are getting here. But Right now we don't have this, so when I try to run the application, it's going to throw an error. But let's do the setup first because we are working on the functionality first. Now we have to import the script, all the JavaScripts. So I can come back here. Let's call this script, and now we have to import the script. So like if you come back to the public, inside the asset we have all this libraries which we are using internally, and that's what we're going to import it. So come back here, let's import one by one. Script, we have to provide the source. We'll get into the assets, then we go into the libs, and from there we'll get this preline .js. Simply replicate couple of time, and now we have to simply change this one by one. So this will be the swiper, and this will be the swiper bundle mini, and simply change this to change the spelling of this as well. We'll say p line. Do the same thing for all of this pre line, and now we can simply select both and change goes shoe js, and this will be normal one. We'll say polyfills mini. Let's change this one as well. This will be the lucid min, and here we have to call this to AOS for the CS, and let's change this as well. It's called JS, and here we have to get the let's remove this and let's call this one swiper, and this will be the theme. Pretty good. We got all the JavaScript libraries. Looks pretty fine, and that's the only thing we have to do here. And finally we have to simply export our app. So we'll say app default, export default app, and that looks pretty fine. So what we have done, first we have imported all of the library, and then if we come back here and reload the page, you can see we are getting this particular error. So let's check, let's re-import. We'll say Solana, we'll go to the wallet adapter, we'll say react UI slash style css. Okay, I forgot to add s, and save it, and now you will see that we are getting a different error because we have done our context setups and there is no context. So that's why we are getting this error from the document. So this is the two which causing the issue. Not a big deal, we have to work on the functionality first. So let's come back here, close this one, come back here. Now we can go back to the context and let's start working on the context provider. So click on that, and this is the just boilerplate we have. So simply remove this one. Now we have to import couple of libraries. So first, and all of this is going to be coming from the Solana. So we have the Solana wallet adapter base, and from this particular library we have to receive the wallet adapter network. Then we have to receive the wallet error. So when the error will take place, when the user is not connected or connected, or maybe he has switched his or her account, and that time this will give the information of that whether it's connected. Then on the basis of that we're going to throw the error. That's the first import. Then we have to import another library, and this is also called Solana wallet adapter react, and from here we have to get the connection provider, we have to get the wallet provider. So these are the two things we are getting. Now we have to import call sol wallet adapter react UI. In that we're going to receive the wallet model provider, and we have to import it as a, let's call this react UI wallet model provider. So that's name is quite good because I don't want to create a name conflict, and we're going to have a similar naming structure. So let's call this one. So that's what we have here. Now we can come back here, let's import, and this time we're going to import the, let's say Solana wallet adapter wallets. This will give us all the wallets available. So I'm going to provide multiple options to our users. So let's provide that. So first one is going to be the phantom, the second one is going to be the Sol wallet adapter, then we're going to Sol extension wallet adapter, and they have Sol wallet adapter, and we'll have tools. The name is quite usual. We'll say True's wallet adapter. There is multiple option, but right now this 5 is enough because most of the application use this one. You can go more than this, but I'll go with this 5. So these are the wallet provider we're going to use it, but the main one is going to be the Phantom, or you can pick anyone. Come back here. We have to import the, we'll say, Sol Web3.js, and this Web3.js package is really powerful, and Solana have added some extra feature which we can utilize to get the private key and which allow us to connect with the blockchain, and it will give us the vital information. So the method is quite simple. So we have to import the cluster, then we have to import the cluster API URL. That these are the two things we're going to get it, and this will tell us that what exactly network we have connected. So everything will make sense. Just follow along with me. Now we have to simply come here and we have to import React, and from there we're going to get this FC. We'll get this React node, and we have to get this use callback, use memo, and provide this one. And these hooks are very important because whenever the user will change the state of the application, we have to get the information. That's why I have taken this use callback and use hook. So come back here, then we have to import the, we'll say, do the internal import. Then we have to import the auto connector as well, because when the user will save the information, we're going to store in the local system, and from there we're going to simply fetch and provide the automatic connection. So let's import that. So this function is we're going to code it. So let's call it auto connector provider, use auto connect. Now we can come back here. Let's import notify, and that's coming from our utils slash notification. So these are the libraries we are using. Now we got the notify. Now let's import the couple of things, like this one is coming from the network configuration. So in that we're going to build a couple of functionality like network configuration provider. So this is the function we have to build. We have to build this use network configuration. These are the two functions we're going to build in our network configuration. So far things are looking good. You can see we have imported a lot of libraries, and all of these libraries are very important in nature. So we have this connect wallet, we have the wallet providers, we have the cluster, React, auto connector, notification error, and our custom network configuration function. Now we can come back here and let's work on the functionality. Now we have to build our wallet setup. So we'll take a variable called wallet context provider, and we'll say FC. In that we have to simply provide, we'll say children React node, and it's going to be a callback function. So inside we have to simply pass the child. Let's bring it back. We have to pass children, and we have to simply build the logic. So in that we're going to take a variable called auto connect, and this is we are getting from the use auto connect function. Then we have to take another one, and in that we're going to call the network, and this network configuration is coming from our custom network configuration which we have built, which we're going to build. So let's import that use network configuration. So these are the two custom function we have called. Now let's take another variable called network, and here we have to find out that which network user have connected, and in that case we're going to use our library. So we're going to take this network configuration, and we have to say wallet adapter network. So this will give us the information that which network we have connected. Now we can take a variable called original endpoint. So this is nothing but our RPC endpoint. So when the user will connect with the mainnet, testnet, or devnet, so this particular data we have to update with that RPC endpoint, and which we're going to pass our context management. So it's going to know that this is the network user have connected. So here we have to simply call this use memo, and it's going to take the callback function. So in that we have to simply pass the cluster API URL. In that we have to pass the network, and we have to call this every time whenever the user changes network. So we're going to take this array and that we're going to pass this network. So this is the simple function we have. So whenever the user will change, it will automatically take the RPC endpoint and going to set this. So let's take another variable called let end point, because we are dealing with the three networks. And the reason why I'm taking this particular variable, because the network RPC endpoint, this particular wallet provider will give you for the mainnet is not working, it's depreciated. So we cannot use the old RPC endpoint for the mainnet, but it's working fine on the testnet or devnet. So that's why we have to hard code the data for the mainnet. So that's why we're going to take this if statement. So we'll say if network equal to the main beta, if that's the object we'll get, then we have to simply set the endpoint to our hardcode RPC endpoint, which we can get from the acmele. So for the time being, I'll go with this hardcode text URL. Later I will simply copy and paste the RPC endpoint, but let's do that. Continue RPC endpoint. Else if network equal to the devnet, then we have to build the endpoint, and this is the endpoint for the devnet, same. And now we have to do the same thing for the testnet as well, the original endpoint. So this is the simple thing, simple logic we have built. So if there is a network by the name called mainnet, then we have to render the custom RPC endpoint, otherwise we can go with the default one. Looks pretty fine. So this is the one which we have to get from the acmele, because right now acmele is the only provider which give you to create a Solana RPC endpoint for free. Now this looks fine. Now we can come back here. Let's build the logic. So we'll take a variable called wallet. We'll say use memo, and that we have to provide all the wallet provider. It's gonna take a callback function. So in that we're gonna pass the wallet provider as a form of array. So we'll use this new phantom wallet adapter. We have to do with the same thing with the other wallet. We'll say sol wallet adapter, then we'll say this new sol tid wallet adapter, bring it down. We'll say new solid extension wallet adapter, then we'll take the another one called Tors wall adapter. I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly. So we got done with the wallet provider, and here we have to simply call whenever the network get changes, we have to simply recall this particular hook. So we are done with the packages, all of the packages we have installed. We have built our wallet provider. Here we have the network configuration and the wallet configuration. Now we can come back here. Let's build a function called const on error. So when we'll get an error, we have to handle that as well. So we're going to use this use callback. It will take a callback function. We'll call it wallet error, and here we have to build the condition. So we'll call this notify, and that we have to simply pass the error type and the error message. So we'll say type error message is going to be the error message which we are getting. So we'll say if error.message exists, then we have to simply format that, because it's going to have multiple data. So we'll take a template literal, and we'll take the dollars and we'll say error.name. What is the name of the error? Then we have to take the error.message, and finally we have to take the error name. So this is the simple message construction, and these are the types we're going to receive in our notify component, which we're going to build in a while. So just wait. So looks pretty good. We are done with this on error function, and we can simply come back here and let's console log out the error object to see in our terminal if anything goes wrong, so we can debug it better. And we can call this one when the user will switch their account. So we are done with this. Close this one. Now we can come back here, close this one by one, and this looks good. Now come back here. We'll take this return, and in that we have to simply build our connection provider. So in that we have to simply pass the endpoint. In this way, what will happen, that our network, the entire application will know that which network we have connected. So the endpoint we are passing, let's close this endpoint, close this connection provider, and inside that we have to simply take the setup for the wallet provider. So we'll say wallet provider wallet. In that we have to pass the wallets and we have to pass the on error. And the reason you can see that I'm getting this suggestion because I have GitHub Copilot in my computer, and that's the extension which suggesting me. So looks pretty good. And I can add this auto connect and I can simply connect, close this one. So I can see something wrong. Let's close this one. That's fine. Come back here. Let's close this. Then we have to take this React UI wallet model provider, close that one. Inside that we have to pass the children and then close this particular one. So this is the setup we have to do for our connection provider, which will do only one thing. It will allow to connect with the network. So we have the connection, we have the provider configuration, we have the error handling, we have the auto connector, and then the rewrite component. Now we can come back here and we have to simply export. So we'll say export const connection provider, we'll say FC. Inside that we're gonna call the children, and I can call this react node. It will take a callback function. We'll say children, and let's build the logic. So we have to return. So inside that I'm going to take this fragment. Let's remove this one. Let's take this fragment, and here we have to take this network configuration provider. Let's close that. Inside that I'm going to take this auto connect provider. Let's close this one, and we have to take our wallet context provider, and we have to simply pass the children in the wallet context provider, and that's the only thing we have to do. I hope you guys have understood that what it's exactly we are doing here. We have this particular library, then we have taken this to one, then we have the like wallet provider, then we have the wallet support, we have this network configuration and custom hooks, custom statement we have written, and finally we are simply returning the context provider. Pretty fine. So we are done with this. Come back here. Now we have to move to the auto connect provider because that's what we are using in our context provider. So let's come back here and let's work on that. So simply remove this one. We have to import, and this time we're going to get from the Solana slash wallet adapter, and we'll have the React. Inside that we're going to receive use local storage, because when the user will connect we have to store the information that what network he has connected, mainnet, devnet or testnets. That's what we're going to store it, and we're going to define some p-value in that. Then we have to import, and this is also coming from React. In that we're going to receive this FC. We'll take this React context, React node, we'll say use context. Come back here, let's export, and we'll take this interface. We'll say auto connect context state. So we have to manage the state, that whether the user is connected or not, what is the state of the auto connect, because when the application will open for the very first time it's going to be default, but when he will interact with our application we're going to set some of the states, and we'll get the information from the local storage to define our state. So that's what we are defining here. So it's going to be, let's say auto, it's going connection is going to be boolean, and here we have to build the function. We'll say set auto connect, and it's going to be a dynamic one. So we'll say auto connect is going to be a boolean, and we'll say void. So that's the simple interface we have, which will keep the state. Now we can come back here. Let's export const auto connect context. We'll take this create context, and that we have to simply take this auto connects context state which we have built in the interface, and we have to simply, we'll take this callback. Inside that we'll say empty object, and then we'll say as auto connect context state. That's the simple to build our create context. That's what we have done. Now we can come back here. We'll say export, and let's build the function. We'll say use auto connect. This is what we are utilizing in our context provider. Now we have to simply call this auto connect context state, and that we have to simply return the use context, and we have to pass the auto connection context, auto connect context. So that's the function. Now we can come back here. We'll take this export cons auto connect provider fc, in that we have to pass the children, and let's call this react node, and we'll have a callback function in that we have to define the children. Let's wrap this, and it's gonna be a function. So we'll take a variable. Let's take this auto connect, set auto connect, and this is coming from our use local storage, and we'll call this key pair called auto connect, and by default is going to be a true. So this is just the setup we are doing for our auto connect provider. This is just how we have to write the TypeScript code. If it's create any confusion, just continue, keep coding and build the entire application. After that, try to analyze, because these are the simple structure. It's not that complicated. Okay. And this is the best way to learn any language, any programming. Just build the project and after that analyze. Once you do that, you will have a better understanding of every single component which you're going to utilize, every single variables. Everything will make sense, that what is extend, what is this FC, what is this interface. Everything is very easy. Just build along with me. We are doing nothing but just declaring the variable and setting some of the predefined value. And now we can simply return, and we have to return our auto connect context provider, and we have to simply pass the value which we want to receive in our provider. So these are the value we are receiving, auto connect, and we have this set auto connect. It's quite simple, just like the way we follow in the normal React context. That's good. So that's the entire setup we have to do. So this is that interface, then we have auto connect context, and we have the hook and all of this. So we are done with this. Now we have to come back to the network configuration, and it's going to be having the similar structure. So let's do that very quickly. So we're going to receive couple of packages. First we have to receive the Solana wallet adapter React, and that we need the use local storage, because we have to get the information from the local storage. Then we have to simply import the React, and in that we need the create context fc react node, and we'll need this use context. Then come back here, let's define the interface. We'll say interface network configuration state, and in that we can take this network configuration, and we'll say string. Then we're going to build the function called set network configuration. Inside that we have to define the network configuration, the one which we have defined above, but let's call this string, and we'll say void. So that looks pretty fine. Hope you guys understood that what we are exactly doing. We are following the similar structure which we have followed in the auto connect provider. So let's do it very quickly. We'll take this export const, and let's build that network configuration context. We'll take this create context, and we have to simply pass our network configuration state. So let's define that network configuration state. Then we have to take this empty object, and we have to say as network configuration state. So that's the network configuration state context. Now we can come back here. We'll take this export function, use network configuration and network configuration state. In that we have to simply return our use context. It's a use context, and that we have to simply pass this network configuration context. Simple. Come back here. Now we have to take another export. We'll say network configuration provider. It's gonna be an FC, and then we have to simply pass the children, and we'll say react node, and it's gonna be taking a callback function. Inside that we'll pass the children, and then we have to define. So we'll define the network configuration and set network configuration, and this is coming from our use local storage. In that we have to define that it's connected with the network, and we have the second one is the devnet. So this is what we have in the network. Then we have to simply return the network configuration provider. We have to set the couple of values. Let's say provider, let's set the value, and then we have to simply pass the network configuration and set network configuration, and simply close this one. Inside that we have to pass the children. So that's the simple setup we have to do for the network configuration, not that like big. Okay, it's a simple setup which will tell us, which will get the information from our local storage, then define all of this setup in our network. So we are done with this entire context list. This is we done with the auto connector, then we have the context provider, and the network configuration is also done. So these are the important feature which we have to build first for our context. That is good. Close this one, and now we have to move to the hook, and here we have to build a couple of logic. So let's build that quickly. First we have to import a couple of things from React. So we need this use router from next router, and then we have to import the, let's say, and this is coming from our the models type. So in that we have to define that what type of networks we're going to have in our applications. So we're going to have mainnet, devnet, or testnet. So let's define this models. So come back here in the model, and let's define that. So let's call this one, let's call this export type. Let's call it type is going to be n point types, and we're going to have these three different types. So first one is going to be the mainnet, second one is going to be the devnet, and third one is going to be the local net. So these are the three different type of we're going to have it. Simply copy, and that's the what we're going to need in our query. Paste here. Looks fine. Now we can come back here. So we got our endpoint type. Come here. Let's export default function. We'll say use query context, and it's going to be a callback function. In that we have to first take the router, use router. Inside the router we have the data, so we're going to take this call, let's call the cluster, and this particular cluster is coming from router, called router dot query. And then we have come here and let's build the endpoint, and we'll say cluster. If the cluster is there, then we have to take this cluster and we have to import it as a endpoint types, and we'll say mainnet. Got it? I hope you guys have understood that what exactly we are doing here. We are getting the cluster from the query, then we are checking and building the endpoint based on the like endpoint types we have defined. If we have, then go with the types, otherwise go with the mainnet. That's the simple if else statement we have. So we're done with that. Now we can come back here. We'll take another variable called has cluster option, and in that we have to take this endpoint. We'll say if it's not equal to the mainnet. So that's the option we're going to define. Then we can come back here. We'll build this fmt url with cluster, and it's going to be a callback function. In that we're going to receive the url, and we're going to build a logic. So we can come here. We'll take this if has cluster option, then we have to simply take this mark and we have to simply call look for this. So we'll take the url, and on that we're going to call this include function, and we have to search for the question. If it's there, I hope you guys can understand that how query exactly form in the url. We add the question, then we add the and to add multiple queries. So that's exactly the same thing we are doing here. We are looking for the question, and on the base of that we are building the query and adding this. Then we can come back here and let's return that. So we'll take this decoded URI component, and all we have to do is to simply pass the URL mark, and we have to pass the simply the cluster endpoint which is coming from the cluster. So this will give us the URL. Now we have to simply come back here and we have to finally return the URL, and we can simply come back here and we're gonna simply call this return. Inside that we have to take this fmt URL with cluster, and that's the only thing we have to do here. So this will give us the endpoint which we want to return from this particular one based on the network user are connected. That's a simple. We are getting some information from the router, then we are building the constructor, checking for the condition whether it's a mainnet or testnet. If it's mainnet, then go with that. Otherwise we have to go with the default setups and building the query. And then we are using this decoded URI component to construct our URL. Pretty good. Now we can do one thing. Looks fine. We are done with this query context, and that's the only thing we have to do. So we are done with this particular hook, query context. We are done with the model. Close this one, close this one. We are done with this. Now we have to move to the next one, store. And here we have to manage our notification error for the notification. And here we have to manage our notification. So when the user will do the transfer or any type of error occur, that's what we're going to manage it. And we're going to manage the balance of the user as well. So let's come back to the notification and let's work on that. So we'll have to import a couple of things. So we need to import, we'll call it zoo stand, and then we need this create, and we're going to have some like state. Then we can come back here, let's import the produce, and this is coming from our immer. Again, these libraries are really powerful. Again, I would suggest you that after completing this project you have to check each one of the library, that what are the extra features it provide. They have tons of feature which you can use it, but I'm going with the basic approach. After this project you complete, make sure to check every single library. Let's define the interface. So we can call this interface notification store. We have to extend, we'll say state, and then we have to define. So the notification is going to be, let's say, array type, and in that we can simply pass the type, so the data. So it's going type first is going to be have a type, so it's going to be a string. Then it's going to be have the message, then it will have the description. It's also be a string type, and then we're going to have this ID. And let's give this question, because sometimes what happens, the data takes a little bit time. So if it takes time, so we want to prevent that. And here we'll say string. So these are the things we have. Okay, I forgot to remove this, add this column, remove this, select all, and remove this. That looks fine. So that's our interface for the notification. Now we can come back here and let's call this set, and in that we have to simply take this x and we'll say any void. So all we have to do is to simply call, and it's going to simply update that. So pretty fine. Looks good. Come back here, let's take a variable called use notification, and let's build the create, and in that we have to simply pass the notification. We'll say set and get. It's gonna take the callback function. In that we have to define the notification, so it's gonna be an array, and we'll call the function. We'll say set fun, and we will have a function called set produce, and that will pass the function. Simple. So this is our create function. Let's bring it back and save it. I hope you guys can understand that what exactly we are doing here. We are just building the setup, defining our interface, and then setting the variables and doing the configuration, so later we can utilize in our component. That's a simple structure we have here. So this is the notification store, and here we have to simply provide this one. Okay, this is the general convention we generally follow, and cut and paste here. That's good. Now we have everything's good. Now we can come back here. Let's call this export default use notification store, and that's we are done with this entire notification component. All we have to do is to call this component, pass the information like type, message, description, id, and it's going to pass to our component, and it will display all the data. Pretty good. All of this we have. Now we can come back here. Now we have to work on the next one, use user soul balance. So that's also we're going to manage in our store. You can do it right in the front end, but it's always better to take this approach to manage, build an internal store, and we can manage that. So let's remove this one and let's build that. So first we're going to import, and this import will come from same library, jet stand, and that we need this create, and we're going to receive the, let's say, state. Then we can come back here, let's import the, and this time we'll get from the Solana web3.js, we need the connection, we need the public key, and we need the lem per soul. So this particular variable we're going to use it to calculate the decimal and all the point. Now we can come back here, let's take the interface, and we have to do the same thing which we have done in the earlier one. So we'll take this user soul balance, store, extend, state, and then that we have to define. So it's going to be a balance. By default it will be a number, and we'll take this get user soul balance, and that we have to say the public key, and we have to define. So I'm going to get like this, the public key, and let's take this one, and I'll say it's coming from the public key. So I'm going to redefine, and this is going to be connection, it's connection, and we'll say this. So this will give us the balance of the user. So this is what I have. Now we can come back here, let's take this use user soul balance store, and we use this create, we'll pass the interface we have built, and then we have to simply follow the same structure. We'll say set get, and in that we're going to have a callback function. In that we have to define that. So we'll define our balance. By default is going to be a 0. Then we'll take this get user soul balance, it's going to be an async. In that we'll take this public key, the modified one, public key, take this one, public key, and we'll have our connection. This is the one. Once we have the public key and connection, then we have to simply build the logic. So we'll take this let balance is equal to 0, but we're going to simply check in based on the condition. So we'll take a try and catch, and here we have to build the logic. So we'll say balance await connection dot get balance, and that we have to simply pass the public keys, and we'll pass the confirm. So this will return the balance of the user, and once we have the balance, we have to simply multiply with the variable lumber per soul, lamb pot per soul. So this will give us the multiplied amount, and that's what we are updating. If anything goes wrong, then we have to simply catch that, and we'll simply log it in the console so we can see what exactly went wrong. And that's pretty much. Now we can come back here and we can simply call this set, and that will pass the information. So we'll pass the balance to the equal to the balance, and we're gonna simply console log the balance. So we'll say balance balance, and let's provide this. So this will console logout and set. Now we can come back here and we have to simply export our user soul balance store, and that's the only thing we have to do for setting the store for our user balance. Whenever he will change or connect with the network, that's what we're going to simply do it. Pretty good. So we are done with this most important functionality in our context management for stating the stores, providing the relevant informations. So we are done with this context, we are done with this hook, we are done with the model, we are done with the store, and we are to build the error explore error and notification error, because once the transaction will complete, we have to find out that which network user have connected, so we can display the actual explore URL, so he or she can go to the explorer, and there they can verify the transaction. I hope you can see that in the notification we are providing the explore URL. So that's what we're going to utilize it, and we have already built the functionality for our FMT query. Okay, I hope you guys haven't forgot that. So let's come back here. Let's import a couple of things. So this time we're going to import the public key from the web3.js, and we'll import the transaction. Then we can come back here. Let's build a export function. We'll say get explorer URL. In that we have to build the endpoint. In that we take this string. Then we'll take this view type or items address. It's going to be an inspector, else it will be a public key or string. So these are three different types we have. Then we have the item type is going to be an address. So this is the simple interface we have, simple function we have. And then we have to simply take a variable called get cluster URL param, and it will take a callback function. And then we have to take this variable called let cluster. By default is going to be an empty string, and we can say if endpoint equal to local net, then we have to go with the cluster, and here we have to just build this particular endpoint. We'll take this custom and custom URL, and we have to define our simply endpoint. And so endpoint, so we're going to use this particular method called encoded URL component, and we have to simply pass this HTTP, it's not S, and we'll give our local IP. So this is the exact, mostly all the computer has the same local IP. Now we are done with that. Now we can come back here. Let's build the else statement, and if endpoint is equal to HTTPS, means the devnet, will say api.dev.solana.com. then we have to simply call this cluster to the devnet, and at the end we're going to simply return the cluster. And here we have to build the condition. We'll take this if cluster exists, then we take this question cluster, we'll take our dynamic data, and then we have to simply pass the cluster, and else is gonna be nothing. And finally we have to return the explorer. So we'll take this HTTP explorer.solana.com slash item type slash view type or item address, and at the end we're going to simply have our get cluster URL param. So we'll take all of this data, and it's going to give us the URL, and which we're going to simply assign here. So simple logic. Hope you guys have understood that what logic we are built here. It's going to return the URL of the particular explorer depending on the network user have connected, which we can simply redirect the user to verify the transaction. So we are done with this explorer. Now we can come back to the notification. And again, I'm telling you, if it sounds complicated, you guys don't understand anything, simply continue with the project. Everything will make sense once you will build the entire project, and you will see that how data is flowing from one component to other. So it looks pretty fine. Now we can start working on the notification component. So let's come back here. Let's import use notification store, and this is coming from /store/use notification store. Now simply remove this one. We have to say export function notify, and that we're going to simply receive the new notification. It will have the type. So these are the information we have passed. I hope you guys haven't forgot that. And now we have to receive. So we have to receive the type, the message, and we have to receive the description as well. And it's going to be a string, and the last one is going to be the transaction ID is going to be string. So these are the information we are receiving. Now we can come back here. We'll take a variable call, and this is coming from the use notification store. We'll call this get state, and we'll get this notification, and we'll say set notification store. Simply we are getting the use notification store. From there we are getting this get state, and these are the two things we are getting. Now we can utilize this to simply set the data in our state. Now we can come back here. We'll take a state notification store, and that we're going to simply pass the state. It will have the notification. Let's call this to array, and we're going to take the callback function, and then we have to simply define the state. So it will take the state dot notification, and we'll have to simply deconstruct the notification object, and we have to simply update the data. So type is going to be the success, and we'll take this another one, notification. So that looks pretty good, pretty fine, and this is the URL, pretty good. So that's the only thing we have to do. Hope you guys have understood that what logic we have followed. We have built our notification state, we have built the hook, context, all of this looks pretty fine. Let's have a quick look. We have all of this, then we have the network configuration is good, the hook is also good, then we have the model, we have the store and the balance store, and here we have the utils, and this is the entire notification component. So this will return success, failure, and all the information. Let's close this one, and now we can come back here in the component, and now we have to work on the app bar. So this is what we're going to work now. So if we come back to the pages, and if you go to this app.txt, here we have built all of that. Before we do that, let me show you one thing. So this looks pretty fine, we have no issue in here. I have simply comment this app footer because we haven't coded, and if I simply call this component, it's going to throw an error. So this looks pretty fine, and I have also found a couple of bugs which we're going to fix out when I was testing. So if I bring it back, if I come back to the application, this is what I'm getting. You can see this is the document error I'm getting. So simply come here, comment this out. So this is looks good. Now we have to do a little bit changes in our context provider, because I was stuck for a while to find out that why I was getting this particular error. So this is fine. Close this one. Now come back to the context provider, and here we have to do minor changes. So this auto connector provider is fine. Come back to the context provider, and here you have to do the changes. So I have written that. Let me show you what are the changes you have to do. So first changes you have to do is, you can see this is what we have. All you have to do is to simply cut and wrap this, because we have to call this hook whenever the network changes, and that's the information we have to provide in our cluster API URL. So this is what you have to do, first change, and that's what you have to do, cluster network. And the second change you have to do here, it's not BETE, it's BETA, because that's the data we'll get from the provider as a name. And here we have to do the changes. So right now you can see I have already done the changes, like context provider, it's not connection provider, but earlier it was connection provider. So change this to context provider and save it. Once you're done with the save, you will see this is how our application looks, pretty fine. It's blank and no error we have, means our entire context setup is done. And now we can start working in our front end and bring all the functionality. So this looks pretty fine. Now we can come back here in the app bar, and here we're going to do all the magic. So this is what I have here. Let's make the screen side by side so you guys can see what exactly we are working on. So let's do one thing. Let's import a couple of things from React FC. Then we have to import, we need the icon, and this is coming from our next link. Then we have to import the network switch component, which will allow the user to simply switch between test, dev, or main. Now we can simply remove this one, and let's export. We'll say export const app bar, and we'll take this FC. So we can simply pass the props, and we have to return it. So let's change this to export and come back here. Let's take a menu, because we have to display different menu. So let's take an array. So we'll take const menu. It's going to be an array of object. So we'll take this one to name will be home, and link is going to be the hash home, because the user will click on the menu and it will go to different section. So simply replicate this, change this to tools, change small. This will be features, this will be small, and this one is price, small, and replicate it one more time, and this will be the FAQ, small. So looks pretty good. We have all of this. Now we can come back here and build the actual J6. So we'll say return. In that we're going to take a div. It will have a header tag, it will have a class, an ID. So we'll add an ID to nav bar sticky. It will have a class called navbar. Inside the header we have to take a div. It will have a class called container. Inside that we'll take a nav. It will have an anchor, and it will have a class called logo. Inside that we have to display our image, and the image is coming from our assets. We'll say slash images slash logo 1.png, and somehow the images are not displaying. So let's assign a class called width 10, and let's call this, sorry, height 10, and this will be logo, and it's not displaying. Let's do this inspect element, let's bring it down, let's expand it, let's bring in it. So I know what is the problem. So we can come back here in the app, and here I have to bring this particular component back. So I commented this, so let's bring it back, save it, and there it is. You can see our header looks pretty fine, that blurry styling, and the image is displaying. Now we can come back here. We'll take a div. It will have a class called ms auto flex item center padding x 2.5. Again, if you don't know about these classes, you can simply check in the Tailwind CS documentation. There everything is mentioned, but I would encourage you to complete the project. After that, do all the testing or check that what this particular variable stand for, and that way you will have a proper idea. Okay, so just follow the project. After that you can clear all your doubt once the application is running, because your priority to focus and complete the project and make the application workable. After that you can do all the experiment. Then we have to take this on the last screen, I would say hidden. Inside the div we'll take the button, and it will have a class. Let's call this one to hs collapse toggle. Will have a background default, and it will have 100 by 5. Then we'll have the inline flex, we'll have a height 9, we'll have a width 12, and we'll have a item center justify center. We'll have a rounded medium border, we'll have a border dash white, and it will have a 20. That's it. Now we can come here and let's add a type is going to be a button, and we have to open the menu on the mobile screen. So let's add the data type, data hatch collapse, and it will have a ID called mobile menu. And let's add this data hs type is going to be collapse, and there it is. You can see there is a button we have. Now we can come here and let's display our icon. So we'll take this data lucid, we'll say menu, we'll have a class called stoke white. Inside that we'll display our icon, so we'll say lu menu. Okay, I did a mistake. So instead of getting from the next link, we have to get from the react. So remove this one, and I need to get this icon from the react icon slash lu. There it is. So we got the button, looks pretty fine. Now we can come out of this button. So that's button, come out of the div. Now we'll take a div, we'll have a class. Now we have to display the menu, which we're going to display and open based on the click. And we're going to also display on the desktop mode as well. So we'll take this hs, let's call this hs collapse. It will have max auto, margin top 2 pixels, hidden, will have a grow, and this will call the base full, item center justify center, and this will have the transition all, duration is going to be 300, and on the last screen we want this margin top to be 0, and it will have the, let's say, large flex. Okay, just bring it back and we'll say large is gonna be a flex. It will have the large base auto. Inside that we're gonna simply take this, come inside the div, let's take the ID and we'll say mobile menu. So when the user will click, we have to trigger. Inside the div we have to take this UL and we'll have a ID. Let's call this Navbar, nav list. It will have a class called Navbar nav. Inside that we'll take our array and we have to simply render it. So we'll call it list index is going to be an instant return, and then we'll take the li. It will have the class called nav item. It will have a key called index. Inside that we have to take this anchor and we have to simply provide a class called nav link, and we'll have a link, so let's call href, and we have to simply provide our link. So when the user will click, it's going to go to that particular section. Now inside that we have to display the name of the menu, save it. If you click, it's going to open pretty beautiful. If you make on that, that looks good. That's responsive. Now we have to display the button, so we can come back here. Let's display this network switch, close this one, and here we have to also send the props. So let's come down here, we'll send the props dot children, and that's what we're going to design next. So network switch, so user can switch between different network. So we're done with this app bar, the navigation, pretty fine. Now come back to the network switch and let's start working on this. So in this we have to receive few things. So we have to receive the FC, then we have to import the dynamic rendering component, and this is dynamic rendering component, that's why we are using this next dynamic. And then we can come back here and then we have to say import, and we have to import our context network configuration provider. In that we have to simply receive our use network configuration. Now we have to do the internal import, simply cut this and paste here. Now we can come back here, we have to say import, we'll say network switch svg. We have to literally get our icon, so svg, which is coming from svg folder. So if you open this one and go to the svg, and that's what we are importing. So let's import this one. Instead of create, we have to get this network switch svg, and that's what we are importing. Now we can come back here and let's change this to fc. Come here, we have to take a variable, and here what we're going to do is we're going to use our switch use network configuration, and in that we have to simply receive the network configuration and set network configuration. Now we can simply start working on our return component. We'll take this, let's change this to dynamic, and in that we have to simply pass. So we can, it will have a callback function, and that we can simply pass our promise dot resolve. In that we'll simply pass our network switch, and we'll pass this src to false. Good. Now we can simply work on the network configuration. So we can load this component dynamically. So now we will take this fragment, let's have a input type is going to be a check box, and let's have an id, we'll call it check box. Then we can come back here and take this label, it will have a class called switch. Inside that we'll have the selection, and we don't need this name, we'll have a value, and this will call network configuration. Let's remove the id, and here we have to add this on change, and the base of on change we have to simply set the network. So we already have the function, so we'll take this event, we'll call this set network configuration. In that we have to simply pass the value, so e.targeted value, and based on the value we have to simply connect, and by default we'll go with the devnet. There it is. Let's have a class called select max width small, and we'll have a border none, and background is going to be transparent, and outline is going to be 0. There it is, circle. Now inside that we have to define the options, the 3 options we're going to define. So mainnet, testnet and devnet. So let's call mainnet beta, and we'll say main, replicate it and change the value. So this will be devnet, and this is going to be the test net, and change this to test dev. These names are very important. You have to give the exact name because this is what we are triggering in our context. And if you click, you can have this option and you can switch to different network. Right now you can see I'm getting this option error because we haven't defined the mainnet RPC endpoint, and it's trying to fetch that the RPC endpoint. So if I take you back to the context, come back here in the context provider, and here you can see that it's working fine on the devnet or testnet, but we haven't provided the URL for the mainnet. That's why it's giving this error. So let's do one thing. Let's get the URL RPC endpoint. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open a new tab, reload it. Still I'm getting this error, so I'm going to simply open a new tab. So simply ignore this one, open a new tab and open Acme. So it's a Web3 provider which you can use to build your Web3 application. Right now, what I have found that most of the RPC endpoint providers are charging small amount of fee for using the Solana, but Acme is quite free, which you can use it. So make sure to create an account and get into your dashboard. So I have created my account. I have already created a couple of projects. That's all project you will find. So if I click on here, view all apps, you will see all the project which I have created, and I have already created for the Solana. So I will show you one more time that how you can create. So click on this app and let me delete one project because right now I can create only 6, not more than that. So let me delete one. So let's delete this Gorilla one because I have not using Gorilla in another project. So simply type bot and delete. Once you delete, once you have less than 6, you will have this option to call create new. So I'll click on this, select the network. So I'll go with the Solana, then pick the main or dev. I'll go with the main, and you can give a short description for yourself for having. I'll call it main and call create app. So once you will create, it's going to give you this API key. Click here, and we need this. So you have these two options like WebSocket and RPC endpoint, but I'm going to use RPC endpoint. So simply copy this and come back to the here, and we have to simply provide the URL. Again, once you download the final source code, I'm going to provide it, or you can simply create your own and get your own. So if I reload the page, come back here. If I reload the page, you will see right now we don't have any error. So the network looks pretty fine. You can switch to different network and reload the page. You will have no issue. Do the same thing. So whenever you are changing, it's getting automatically triggered and try to connect with the network. So pretty fine. So this looks good. Now come back here and close this one. So we are done with this switch network. That's the only thing we have to do here. We'll build this dynamic block and we'll have the setups ready. Now close this one. Now we can come back here. So we are done with this app bar. We are done with the switch network. Now we have to work on the notification. So we can display whenever any error take place. So before we continue ahead and start working on the functionality, we have to know that what exactly happening whenever we make any mistake. So let's work on the notification component because this one is quite big. So let's work on this. So first thing we're going to do is we have to import few things from React. We need this use effect and use state. Then we can come back here. We have to import the hierarchy icons, React outline, and from there we have to get this, let's call the check circle icon, information circle icon, and we have this X circle icon. Then we have to import the hierarchy icon solid. We'll nick this X icon, and then we have to simply import the use notification store that's coming from the store use notification. Then we have to import the use config connection, and that's coming from the wallet adapter React. Then we have to import the use network configuration, and it's coming from the context provider. So let's call this context slash network configuration provider. We got all of these imports. Now we can come back here. Let's do the internal import, and we can call this import. We'll link this notification SVG file, the icon, and now we can come and change this to FC. We'll call this list, change here, and let's take a variable called use notification store. In that we have to simply pass a callback function, and we have to receive the notification, and we have to receive the set notification. Then we can come back here. Let's build this reversed notification, and we have to first deconstruct the notification, so we have to simply reverse that. So we'll take a class, and it will have a class called pointer, event none, fixed, inset 0, z index 20. We'll have a flex item end, and we'll have padding x is going to be 4 pixels, padding y is going to be 6 pixels, and on small screen we'll have a padding 6. So that's the classes on the main div. Now we can remove this. We'll take a div, it will have a class, and we'll call this one is flex with full flex call. Inside that we'll take the dynamic block, and we have to simply call our component. So we'll call this reverse notification, and we have to simply loop over it. So we'll take this data and the ID, and then we have to build this particular internal component we're going to build. So let's call the internal component. We haven't built yet, but we're going to build it, and let's pass all of the data we're going to receive in this component. So let's call this notification. Let's send the data. So we have to send the first thing is going to be the key, and the key will come in the form of this. So we'll have this dynamic data. We'll take this the message, then we have to call this transaction ID, then we'll have a type. So whether it's a, let's say, type, so it will return whether the success or failure. Then we have to pass the message. We'll have the end dot message, then we'll take the description, which is already there, the description, and at the end we have to take the transaction ID, and this will call end dot transaction ID, and we will have a on height function. In that we have to simply build, we'll say this set notification. In that we have to simply pass the state, we'll say any, and we'll take a callback function. In that we have to simply provide the variables. We'll take this reserve index, we'll take the reserve notification, we have to check for the length, and then we have to simply get the ID. Then we have to take the state, we'll call this notification, and in that we have to simply pass the data in the form of array. So first we have to deconstruct the notification, and we have to slice it down to a small character. So we'll pass the reverse index length, and we have to do the same thing with the other way. So we'll take this notification slice, and we'll pass this reserve +1. Simple logic to have the function and the data. So now we have to simply get this particular function working. So we have to build this internal function right up here. So copy, and that's what we're going to build it here. So we'll take this const notification, and we have to receive all of the data. So first one is going to be type, second one is going to be the message, third one is going to be the description, and then we're going to have a transaction ID and the function we have built. Let's code that. So first thing we have to come here, and we'll take a variable called connection, and this connection is coming from use connection. Then we can come back here, const use network. We'll take this use network configuration. Let's remove this to network only, and it's coming from the use network configuration. Then we can come back here, we'll take this use effect, and we already have a function which we have passed as a prop. That's what we're going to call it. So we'll take this ID, and we'll call this set timeout, and in that we have to simply call the function we have built. Then we're going to simply provide the time. It's going to be an 8 second. Then we can come back here, we'll take simply return, and we have to simply call this clear interval. We'll pass the ID once we're done with that, and we have to simply call this whenever on hidden function get called and trigger. Now we can come back here, we'll take this return, and we have to simply work on the JSX. So we'll take a div, it will have a class called bkg1, will have a pointer event none auto, then we'll have z index 50, then we'll have max 4 margin top 2, margin bottom 12, we'll have width full, we'll have max width small, overflow hidden, then we'll have our rounded MD, we'll have a background, we're going to have our branding color 0A1023, then we'll have a padding 2 pixels on, we'll have a shadow large ring 1. Inside that we're gonna take the div, it will have a class, we'll have a padding 4. Inside the div we'll take a class, it will have a flex item center. Inside the div we'll take a div, it will have a class called flex shrink. I hope you guys can hear the noise. She's my niche, she's out the door and she's shouting, so keep working, okay. Flex string 0. Inside the div we're going to take the dynamic data, we'll say type if equal to error, then we have to display the different icon. So we'll say if type is equal to success, then we'll display check circle icon, and we have to assign the classes. So we'll have a class called, let's say, text success, then we'll have the margin 1, right 1, and height is going to be 8 and width is going to be 8. Else we're going to have the null, let's call null. So that's the first one. Simply copy, paste here and change this to information circle and change this to info. Change the color type is going to be info. Now we have to do the same thing for the error. Copy and paste here, change this to error, and this will be called X circle icon, and this is the error. So this is the component we have. Now we can come back here, come out of the div, and we'll take a div, it will have a class called margin left 2, width 0, flex 1. Inside the div we'll take a class called text fgd1, we'll have a font bold. Inside the we'll have a message. Now we can come here, we'll take a div, we'll take a dynamic block, and we'll say if description exists, then we'll take a p, it will have a class called text fgd2, margin top 0.5, text small. Inside that we're going to display our description, else null. So that's the description if exists. Now we have to take another dynamic block for the transaction ID. We'll say if exists, then we have to take a div, it will have a class called flex row. Inside that we'll take an anchor, and we have to simply take the dynamic URL because that's what we're going to provide. So we'll say http://explorer.solana.com transaction, and then we have to simply provide we have to simply concatenate. So we'll take this transaction ID plus we have our cluster. So we'll take this cluster, in that we have to simply pass the dynamic data, which is the network configuration. This will have the data of that particular network and the transaction. Let's have a target to be a next window, and we'll have this real none referable. It will have a class called link ancient, we'll have the link flex, we'll have flex row. Inside that we have to display the notification SBC icon, then we have to display the data. So we'll take a div, it will have a class called margin x for flex. Inside that we're going to display our transaction ID, and we have to simply slice it down to 8 characters. So we'll say 00, and we'll have the last one is going to be sliced. This will be transaction.length -8 from the last. Pretty good. Now we can come back here and we'll go with the else main now. That looks good. Pretty fine. So that's the entire notification component we have. Now we can come back here. We'll take a div. It will have a class called margin left for flex string 0. We'll have self start. Inside the div we'll take our button, and it will have a on click function. Inside that we're going to simply call this on hide, and it will have a class called bgbkg2, and we'll have a transition text transition. We have text fg2, overflow is going to be text fgd4, and we'll have this inline is going to be flex rounded medium. We'll have focus is going to be outline none, and we can display the span. It will have a class called sr only. Inside that we'll say close and save it. Then come down here and we can display our icon, the close icon, provide height, width, and that's the only thing we have to assign. Pretty good. Hope you guys can understand. First we have imported these hooks, the icons, then we have the network configuration, the setups we have done, we are getting this notification, then we are reserving it for the latest one, and that's all the setup. This is the internal component and passing all of the data. Then we have the internal component receiving the props. Looks good. This is the hook which will be triggered on the on height, and here we have simply built our entire dynamic component. Hope you guys can understand that what exactly we have done. And here we have all of this. This is the close button. Close that one. Now if you come back here, I can see here I have made a mistake, so simply come back here, copy this one, and that's what we can simply paste here and save it. So that's the only thing you have to do. This is absolutely fine and no problem we have. So if I come back, reload the page, you can see I'm getting this particular warning. I know instead of MAO I have to say P map. Save it, come back here, and there is no problem we have. It looks pretty fine. Now we can start working on the component. So come close this one. We are done with this switch, we are done with this network, we are done with the header. Now we're going to work on the footer.